Welcome to another episode of Southern Ohio Matters with host Gina Collinsworth. Today, we're going to be looking at three different things. First of all, we're going to be looking at the small business grants that are available. The second is entrepreneurship and recovery. And the third is broadband. So stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of Southern Ohio Matters with host Gina Collinsworth. Gina is the information coordinator with the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission located here in Pike County. Gina, it's always a pleasure talking with you.
Hey, Patrick, how are you today? We're neighbors, aren't we?
I think so. I had a chance to look at some of the guests that you're going to be talking about today, and it really sounds like a really good program that you're bringing together this coming next half hour.
Patrick, it's always a pleasure to be here because we have a lot of good information to share. We like to share good news you can use. So right off the bat, I wanted to talk about real briefly how Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted have made more money available for our small business owners out there. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, there is a restaurant, food and beverage establishment grant available. There is an entertainment venue grant available if you happen to have a theater or you've got some kind of entertainment venue. Those grants are out there. And there's also lodging grants available right now and new small business grants of up to $10,000 for people who just started their business. Can you imagine trying to start a new business during COVID? I know that would be a challenge. And so these grants are out there for our small business community. We want you to take advantage of it. And I will share with you, go to development.ohio.gov for more information. And they're all brought to you through the Ohio Department of Development. We do have a guest that's going to talk about business, one of our favorite topics. Community and economic development and planning is vital to the mission at the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission. And we work a lot with the Appalachian Regional Commission. So we just had a wonderful visit with the ARC Federal Co-Chair, Gayle Manchin. She's new to ARC, just appointed, and she came to the region to take a look at some of the projects that we've been all working on, trying to move us forward here in Appalachia. So one of the people that we got to meet during her visit was Joshua Lawson, and Josh is here today. So let's welcome Josh to the show. Hi, Josh. How are you today?
Hey, Gina. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I want you to know I was so impressed with all of the wonderful things we have going on in the region, but one in particular that we want to talk about today is what you're doing, Josh, and your work at the Shawnee State University Kricker Innovation Hub. So I know you're kind of new to the team. Josh, tell us a little bit about your background and how you joined up with Shawnee State University.
Yeah, so I'm the recovery program coordinator at the Kricker Innovation Hub. So this has been my role since October of last year. The Innovation Hub received an ARC Power Grant that actually kicked off in September of 2019. But as you mentioned already, the pandemic and the effects slowed everybody down on pretty much all fronts. So it was over a year into that grant period before I actually even came on board. ARC has given us an extension due to the pandemic to continue our operations. But I'm working under this ARC grant to help kind of build bridges between the entrepreneurship ecosystem that the Innovation Hub is a part of, as part of the Lights Regional Innovation Network, and the recovery ecosystem that exists throughout Southeast Ohio.
I think in your presentation, Josh, you touched on this, but for our viewers out there, tell us a little bit, what are some of those common barriers people face when they're trying to maintain employment and long-term sobriety? I'm sure that's challenging.
Yes, so many barriers. We could talk about legal barriers. Many people with a criminal record, for instance, face, and in many instances, the punishment seems to follow them throughout their life, even beyond the initial sentencing and charges that they receive. Transportation is a big need and a big challenge in rural areas like ours, limited resources. One of the biggest barriers I think that gets tricky for people who are in recovery when it comes to employment is just all the logistical issues that many folks face, such as getting to and from support meetings and fitting that into their schedule. and working around that or with their employer to make that available to them. Many people who may be on medication-assisted treatment and need to go to the doctor regularly for whatever reason. That's an issue. Do they have probationary meetings? Things of that nature that a lot of us, normies, so to speak, don't have to factor into our day-to-day life when it comes to employment. And there's not a whole lot of employers out there. There are many. There's a growing number of them, but still many who don't quite understand how to manage those needs when it comes to their employees in recovery. So I think that's a big area of focus that we need to look at.
So tell us more about the programs that you have started working with there at Kricker Innovation Hub. Some of the things that I actually got to attend one of your programs, but tell us more about what the work is that you're actually doing there.
Yeah. So one of the main areas we're focusing on is connecting peer support services with our maker spaces, such as the Kricker Innovation Hub. We've got our building currently under renovation down on the corner of Chillicothe and 3rd in Ohio. We have partners in Marietta, Hocking College, OU, and Athens. They have maker spaces as well where people can come in, they can learn various trades, they can have classes, things that teach them life skills, various things. So to have someone on board or someone in the community we're partnering with who has lived experience in recovery and who can provide peer support services for people from the recovery world who are seeking, again, to cross that bridge into this entrepreneurial ecosystem that the partners within our network have built. So that's something we're focused on right now, in particular trying to help facilitate the development of a couple RCOs in the Southeast Ohio region. RCO being a recovery community organization, just like any other nonprofit entity, but it is entirely peer-led by people in recovery. And it's for people in recovery to connect folks who are seeking recovery with all of the services that are available in their area, including workforce development and employment options. So again, we're kind of top heavy on clinical services for people in recovery in our area. So focusing on ways that we can build up the peer support realm is what we're focused on a lot at the Hub right now.
I think that is such a great focus for our area because, there's a lot of negativity around sometimes the recovery community, but in our area, we have been innovative, I feel like, in some of the response to how do we connect people back to the community, because we both know social isolation is one of the biggest challenges for people in recovery. And one of the ways they can stay healthy is to stay engaged. And we both know a job is so important, meaningful work, I should say. And you talked about creativity. One of the best programs I've been to in a while was something that you hosted through the Kricker Innovation Hub, where you actually had an online forum and an event with entrepreneurs who are in recovery sharing their experience. Let's talk about that because it was very impactful.
Yeah, so we hosted that back in February. So we were still fully work remote at that point. So it was an entirely virtual event. Fun to put together for that in that regard. But yeah, I moderated a panel discussion between, I think it was 5 individuals, all of whom are in active long-term recovery from substance use disorder, and all of whom have been very successful in their respective fields as entrepreneurs and small business owners. So we got to sit down for about an hour and just talk about how those two things intersected. Their experience of being in recovery, struggles that they face that are unique to them, and how that overlaps with their experience as entrepreneurs. I enjoyed the conversation tremendously.
What were some of the things people came out of that with, Josh? Were there anybody that's connected with you after that event that said, hey, I started my own business, or I'm looking at starting my own business? What actually happened the day after that event?
Yeah, well, we received great feedback from the community, both local and beyond. There was one particular gentleman who made every single effort he could to be present to listen to that conversation. He went out and bought a $100 laptop. He sought down a friend of his whose Wi-Fi he could borrow. I coached him all the way up to the last minute on how to register for the event, how to be there and be present online in that virtual format, which was new to him. And he wanted to be there because we had a friend of his, a close friend whom he is kind of modeling some of his peer support work after, who was on the panel as well, who does a lot in our community in terms of trying to connect people with resources and get them the help they need. So just to present that example, here are some folks just like the rest of us and just like you all who are coming from that place and that unique struggle. And here's what they've done to overcome. Here's what they're doing to pay it forward in their communities and help others like them. And I think more than anything else, it was just a real fascinating example to those who are listening of what is possible for people in recovery.
And possibilities are what we need sometimes, that aspirational story where we can connect to it and start to dream again and rebuild. It was a really great event. Do you have any other events coming up or new programs that are coming out? What should we know is coming from Kricker Innovation Hub?
Yep. So the next thing we're planning specific for folks in recovery is we are partnering with some of our local treatment centers to host an 8-week workshop, entrepreneurial mindset workshop. We're basing this off of the curriculum of the Entrepreneurship Learning Initiative, which I am a certified facilitator. And we're actually putting 2 other people local who work in the treatment field, who have lived experience in recovery as well, to facilitate that with me. And it's just going to be an 8-week process where we go into some of these treatment programs. We work with the people who are in the program, and we just journey with them through this problem-solving workshopping event to help build skills related to what it might take to be an entrepreneur, how to build resiliency, how to identify opportunities within obstacles, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of going to be a pilot program, something very unique for this area, and I'm looking forward to it.
Josh, how can people find out more? Where can they go to find out more about the programs through the Kricker Innovation Hub at Shawnee State University?
Yeah, so that would be ssuinnovation.com. That's where they can find out everything that's going on at the hub now and in the future.
It's pretty exciting that we have that facility in downtown Portsmouth and connected to, it's like you said, the bridge between business and learning and the community. It just seems like it's a great meeting point for all these different people to come together and learn. And one thing I think is super important, and we'll be talking about later in the show, is broadband. So Josh, how important is broadband to the work you're doing at the Kricker Innovation Hub?
Yeah, well, it can't be understated. You know, in a rural area like ours in Central Appalachia, especially now through the pandemic and how so many organizations had to pivot to an online virtual format. You know, we've done that through the hub over the past year. And, you know, it seems strange to some people to realize that there are still a lot of folks out there who don't have good access to the broadband, the services that we need. And that opens up so many opportunities for folks in recovery or not, or otherwise. So we have to expand this access as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to bring people the access that they need to opportunities.
Before we go, Josh, I want to congratulate you on releasing your first book. You are a published author. Isn't that exciting?
It is. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Gina.
Real quick before we go, give us a plug on your book. What's the title where can we get it?
Yeah, The Face of Addiction. Subtitle Stories of Loss and Recovery, in which I interview 12 people who've been impacted by substance use disorder or the overdose crisis here in Southern Ohio. It's available on Amazon and other major distributors as well, but The Face of Addiction.
Speaking of broadband, right, Josh?
Speaking of broadband, yes.
Get online. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day, and thanks for all the work you're doing at the Kricker Innovation Hub. You and, of course, David Kilroy down there, and others, we really appreciate what you're doing in the community.
Well, thank you, Gina. I appreciate your work as well.
Thank you. A big thank you to Josh from the Kricker Innovation Hub for the information he brought to us today. And our next guest is with us and ready to go. We want to talk about broadband, and that's the topic on everyone's mind in our Southern Ohio region and across rural Appalachia and Appalachia, Ohio. We do have some exciting news to report, and with us today is Andrea Lewis from Reid Consulting. How are you doing, Andrea?
Doing great today, Gina. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your day. This issue is so important to our region for many reasons. We talked to Josh about entrepreneurship, and you know, we have a lot of opportunities related to entrepreneurship and small business online, but if we can't get online, what are we going to do? So Andrea, can you bring us up to date on why broadband access is such a problem in our Appalachian region?
Well, Gina, it comes down to several things. And those of us who live here, it's a beautiful place to live. But we know that, you know, our communities, a lot of our region is rural, which means the population density is kind of low. It's not the same as it is in our big city centers where our Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati are. So when it's lower like that, and you have those low density areas, the realistic financial picture sometimes to put broadband in those areas does not make sense. And it's because there has to be such a high level of private and public investment to make it feasible and from the government or the carriers or whoever that may be, that without it, it's not affordable. I think the other thing is our areas are very fragmented. I mean, many of the areas in rural Appalachia are hilly. There's a lot of trees. We don't have as many roads. So those things all kind of bring a challenge to effectively making sure that we all have the same equal access to broadband service.
Well, I know you're part of a great team through Connecting Appalachia, Tom Reid Consulting. Everybody's working on the problem, and there is some progress to report. So just bring us up to date a little bit. Who is currently working on the problem, and maybe some of the latest news from our state legislature and the state budget allocations? Just, you have such great knowledge, Andrea, about where we are currently. And, that's important because a lot of times we might have outdated information, or we don't have the full picture. So I'm so glad you're here to kind of bring us up to date.
So I work with Connecting Appalachia, and Connecting Appalachia has been a consortium of organizations that have been advocating for last mile broadband deployment in our region of the state, which is the 32 Appalachian counties that go across the southern and eastern border of our great state of Ohio. And the group is a consortium of local governments, regional economic development councils, industry professionals, all focused on increasing economic opportunity in our region by expanding access to quality and affordable broadband. So some of our partners down in our region that I just want to give a shout out to are, of course, our development districts who work on advocacy issues in our region for so many things, but it's good collectively to have a voice with Buckeye Hills Regional Council and the Ohio Mideastern Governments Association, which is Omega, Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, which is OVRDC.
Hey, I know those people.
Yes, and Eastgate up in the northern part of our state. So those development districts have been working for a long time and know that for their communities' growth, their economic viability, and attracting business, that broadband is really part of that equation.
So what are some of the activities that Connecting Appalachia is working on? I believe there's a website. I know I've been there, and it has a lot of great information. And then we also were talking earlier about the scorecards that are coming. So tell us a little bit about what advocacy efforts are ongoing with Connecting Appalachia.
Connecting Appalachia really tries to inform policymakers about the true extent of the problems that exist in our focus area. So when funding programs, most recently some of the big ones, so the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund that rolled out about 2 years ago now and awarded funding to many carriers in our region to deploy broadband. When the requirements for that funding and how they're going to deploy come out, if some of the challenges of terrain, adequate levels of investment, the reporting, identifying the need areas, those types of things, the research partners compile data to inform those policymakers about how to improve those programs. So the Connecting Appalachia and Buckeye Hills started with some language when the RDOF money was rolled out to kind of improve how they were considering different areas of need. A large conversation across the nation is in the discrepancies that you see in some of the mapping tools that are used by the Federal Communications Commission and our governments to determine where money should be spent on broadband. And a lot of that problem comes from that data is not required to be verified, and it is carrier provided, and a lot of it is proprietary. So you're getting only a small piece of the picture, and that's problematic. So Connecting Appalachia has been working with all of the partners I mentioned to utilize independent speed data to really paint the picture of what need looks like in Ohio. And it's eye-opening. The data shows significant areas that are not served by even bare minimum speeds that we consider reasonable in this day and age for broadband access. And those are tools that then our development districts have to talk to their legislators about where those expenditures, when funding comes through, especially right now in Ohio. Ohio House Bill 2 is providing a lot of money for last mile construction. There's grants to internet providers to coordinate some of that expansion. The federal budget bill has a lot of money coming into regions like ours, as well as, the ARC Power Initiative and a few other programs meant to really improve and help the communities. So those efforts collectively, and more than our states, can help inform how those processes work so that we don't go another decade kind of behind the times, so to speak.
Absolutely. And Andrea, the timing right now is pretty amazing because the advocacy work you're doing helps to identify really what is true, how many people are really served and how many are really not getting service. One of the things I thought was eye-opening was the classification of tracts, census tracts. And if one home in a census tract is served, at the current definition, the cable provider can say, okay, we've served that area. And we both know that a census tract can be, in rural America, can be pretty large. And that home may be miles away from everybody else on that census tract, but they don't have broadband. But they show up as having broadband in those types of maps.
They do. And I think that's the disconnect for a lot of people. And the data, it's complex. It's hard to understand and it's hard to communicate. And I think when you have a website and you have agencies working together to make that information a little more digestible,
yes,
it helps our county commissioners, it helps our communities talk in a more informed way about their needs so that they are not pushed aside for a later date. And I think anyone who wants to really look at and see what we're doing should take a moment to visit the resources on our website, because they'll have time to mull through that and how those numbers are calculated and how it translates into dollars.
One of the things that you guys have mentioned is actually classifying our area as a digital desert. And I do think that is a great visual for people to understand, digital is so important to our world today for telehealth, for education, for entrepreneurship, like we talked with Josh earlier. So in order to help at this critical time when we do have a lot of resources that are being pointed toward broadband, and now we have advocates who are helping us understand how to apply those the most effective, what can the average person do? What do we want people watching out there to maybe do to get involved if they want to help bring good broadband to all of rural and Appalachia, Ohio?
I think having a collective loud voice is important. And I think what is really gaining traction for Connecting Appalachia, for our state and others, is that there is technology out there that independently tests how fast your connection is. So it's based on you as a user. And some of the reports that we're going to be putting out and the scorecards are based on 9 million users who put their data, they were at home, they clicked on the web portal and hit test my speed, and it shows how fast you are receiving internet. Because I think many consumers, what they see is on their bill what they're paying for, and what you're paying for doesn't actually always translate to what the reality of what you receive. And that's for many, many reasons. I mean, if you're on wireless or satellite, the leaves on the trees can affect that. The weather can affect it sometimes. So there's lots of reasons for that. But we encourage people to be a speed tester for change. And if they visit the website connectingappalachia.org, there's a link there on how they can do that from their home and see what their service really looks like. That data will get compiled into other data that agencies and analysts are using to paint this picture for our policymakers and the FCC to help create change for how these programs are funded. So even if it isn't today, right now, that data is used, it is important to have. There's ways that they can talk to their public officials and their legislators. If they don't know how to get in touch with their legislators, not only through our website, Connecting Appalachia, but through their development districts. So depending on where they live and in what county they are, reaching out to someone like Ohio Valley Resource Development Center, reaching out to someone like Omega or Buckeye Hills, they can connect them with the individuals who need to hear their voice.
And I think in our region, it's very important for us to always be thinking positive about things. So
yes,
Andrea, it's great to have you on the show and to kind of bring us along as far as the journey of broadband in the area, and to let people know we're all working on this problem. And it's a big problem, but we think this is the time to fix it and solve the problem. And Andrea Lewis is working on that through Connecting Appalachia. Thank you, Andrea, for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Andrea and Joshua are two individuals that really believe in our area and collaborate with just about everyone that's wanting to collaborate.
You make a good point, Patrick. We have problems in our area, just like every other area of the country. But what I feel is exciting and what I try to shine a light on are the positive people out there working for change. And Andrea and Josh are both working for change. Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission is working for change. And we believe in the area. We believe in the people, and we think it's a great place to live, work, and raise a family. So we're happy that we are all working together, which is what it takes. You know, there's a lot of power when you all get together and work toward the same goal. So broadband is a good goal. And of course, recovery is the other great goal for the region, and we're working on it.
You usually do a shout out about this time.
Absolutely. So I have to shout out to our federal co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission, Gayle Manchin. She was in the region. She came in last week and visited all kinds of projects and areas. We started in Vinton County. We went to Jackson County, Lawrence County, Scioto County, and I think she really enjoyed seeing the programs and the work that's being done in the region, and she was just a joy to have. And so that's our shout out for today, is federal co-chair of the ARC, Gayle Manchin. Thanks for coming to Southern Ohio and for being such a great partner in the region.
Let me ask you this, Gina. What's the one major reason why you want to live in Southern Ohio?
I think a lot of Appalachian people are very connected to family and their community. And the one reason I want to live here is my family and my community. I love being part of the positives that are in the area. I've traveled quite a bit in my life and in my earlier career as a musician and an entertainer and a singer. I've been all over the world, Patrick, but I never saw another place I loved as much as my home. So that's why I came back, and why a lot of people are coming back. You know, we believe in the area and we're here to build it up. That's what we're working on. You know, we like to work, and that's another thing in our area. We have a good work ethic. We just have great people.
Hey, we're talking with Gina Collinsworth. Gina Collinsworth is a public information coordinator with the Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission, located in Waverly, Ohio, that covers a lot of the different counties in Southern Ohio. For Gina, I'm Patrick Dangle. Thank you for watching and viewing.